My uncle once told me this story, a personal experience he had with his friend James. One day James was browsing the internet. He came across a story about an old suspension bridge located not far from his house. The website had tons of pictures of the bridge and the surrounding area. The next time he met up with my uncle, he told him all about the bridge. It was an ancient suspension bridge that spanned a deep gorge. For some strange reason, it was known as a place infamous for suicides. Every year, 5 to 10 people would leap from the bridge and die. Nobody could ever explain why. Some said the place was haunted by the spirits of those who had taken their own lives there. That evening, after my uncle got home, he decided he needed to see the bridge for himself. He was obsessed with the idea of seeing a ghost. So that very night, he headed into the mountains where the bridge was located. It took him about 30 minutes to get there. It was nearly midnight when he arrived. There wasn't a single soul in sight. It was dark and completely silent. The atmosphere was so spooky and heavy, it sent chills down his spine. "People just make this stuff up," he muttered to himself as he cautiously walked toward the edge of the gorge and looked down into the darkness. He started thinking about all the people who had thrown themselves into that pitch-black abyss. He was so fascinated by the place that he felt like he had to call James and tell him about it. So he pulled out his phone, but since he was high up in the mountains, he couldn't get any signal. Looking around, my uncle noticed a phone booth nearby. Curious, he walked over, stepped inside, dropped some coins into the slot, and dialed James's number. "Hey James, guess who's calling?" he said. "I'm standing at that bridge you told me about. Why don't you come out here tonight? It's so peaceful and quiet." "Sure," James replied. "I've seen that place on Google. Wait there, I'm coming. By the way, where are you calling from?" My uncle laughed. "My phone's out of range, so I'm calling from a payphone." James sounded confused. "A payphone? There's no payphone out there. If there was, I would have seen it in the pictures." "Come on, there's a payphone just down the trail to the bridge. Don't waste time. There are people outside waiting to use it." The moment he said that, James shouted, "No! Don't move! I know that place. I'm coming right now. Just stay inside that payphone and don't hang up." "What's going on?" my uncle asked, starting to feel uneasy. "Just promise me you won't move," James said. "No matter what anyone says, don't step out of that booth." James hung up. My uncle suddenly felt a wave of fear wash over him. He kept the phone to his ear and didn't hang up. He looked outside the booth. People were standing there, silently watching him. There was something deeply unsettling in their eyes, something that made his skin crawl. About 15 minutes later, James arrived at the suspension bridge. He found my uncle standing right at the very edge, holding his phone to his ear, completely unaware of his surroundings. There was no phone booth and no line of people waiting to use the phone. If my uncle had taken even a single step forward, he would have fallen straight off the edge and died. This happened to me during my first year of my bachelor's in technology back in 2008. It was my very first semester, and I was heading to college for the annual Viva exam. I had recently learned to ride a scooter and was always extra cautious whenever someone rode with me. It was especially difficult for me to balance when a woman sat behind me wearing a sari, since they don't usually straddle the seat. They sit sideways. My college was in my hometown, just about 3 kilometers, roughly 2 miles from my house. It was January and it was lightly drizzling that morning. On my way to college, I had to pass through an unpaved road that had turned muddy because of the rain. Just before I reached that stretch, I saw a woman trying to wave me down. She asked if I could give her a ride to a nearby spot since it was getting tough for her to walk on the slippery road. I told her, "Ma'am, I'm not confident riding with someone on the back, especially with these slippery roads. There's a chance we might fall." Even after I kept saying no, she climbed onto the back of the scooter and told me to start riding. I began driving. Surprisingly, I felt more comfortable than expected. I didn't think I could manage, but it seemed like I had gotten over my fear. After a few minutes, I asked her, "Ma'am, where exactly do you need to go?" In a cold, emotionless tone, she replied, "Wherever you're going." That creeped me out. How did she know where I was headed? I slowed the scooter down but kept driving. We rode in silence for a while until she suddenly said, "Stop here." I didn't even think twice. I immediately pulled over. But the moment I turned around, she was gone, completely vanished. I was so shaken I called my mom right away. She was terrified after hearing what happened. Trying to calm me down, she joked, "You never let me sit behind you, and you ended up giving a ghost a ride." I still don't know who that woman was, and I never saw her again, not once on that road to college. My grandma's sister moved into a large house for a surprisingly low rent in a semi-rural area. The house had 2 floors. They rented 1 floor, and an elderly woman lived on the other. Everything seemed fine at first. She had 2 young kids at the time. One night, while she was asleep in her bedroom, she felt the soft touch of a child's hand cuddling her. She assumed it was one of her children, but then she remembered she had fallen asleep alone. When she opened her eyes slightly, there was no one there. Though it gave her chills, she kept her eyes shut and tried to stay calm. Another time, one of her kids screamed, claiming there were cockroaches crawling everywhere. But when she checked, there weren't any. The lanterns in the house would randomly shut off in the middle of the night. Whenever it got dark, the whole place felt gloomy and unsettling. There was one particular bathroom in the house that constantly had issues. No matter how many times they fixed it, the pipes would start leaking again in the very next day. There was also a room in the house that was usually locked. They were told not to open it. Supposedly, it had some of the owner's belongings inside, but strange noises could often be heard coming from that room. Once, while she was on the bus heading back to the city, she saw what looked like the shadow of a child running alongside the bus. She said she had a very heavy, uneasy feeling as she boarded. Later, some people mentioned that, while cleaning the house, workers discovered a human jawbone in one of the air vents. And that's it. Just another creepy experience of a family unknowingly moving into a haunted house. Leralaioli.